What's up, and welcome back to the podcast. It's been 13 days since I last recorded an episode, which is not by design. I literally, for the past 8 days, have not been alone for a single second. Uh, I had to go out of town 2 times to help a bunch of people do some moving stuff. And then the other time I was playing a concert. Um, and literally didn't have a second of alone time. And before that, I didn't have anything to talk about, so I had written down some things to talk about, and I've been wanting to get on here and do a podcast, but I just literally haven't had time, which is kind of it's a weird thing. Like, I haven't had time to be by myself, but I mean, I've been home and I've had the ability to do a podcast or do something like this, but for some reason, I don't ever feel like doing a podcast or doing this type of thing. Well, just doing a podcast in front of people, even if the people are upstairs or in a different room or something like that. I still don't like. You know, last podcast I talked a lot about how this free flowing kind of ideas or platform that I use this on is really nice. And one of the main reasons is because I like the idea that I can just kind of get all these thoughts out, these things that are on my mind, and it's very cathartic for me to not have to necessarily worry about what the response is or what the rebuttals are. And not saying that I would just want to rant and rave about my own opinions and just be right all the time, but really what it comes down to is just not having to worry about feeling judged at any point during what you're saying. And a lot of times I think on here and in life, especially when you're just thinking to yourself, there's not a lot of time that you get to just kind of be completely 100% uh, true to yourself, kind of, and not even true to yourself, but just get to kind of talk out ideas. But um, I like being alone when I record, and kind of some stuff that's really been on my mind lately is just about why I started doing this again and what really podcasting is for me. I mean, I I started a podcast last year with my buddy, and we did about 4 episodes until it kind of all fell apart. And I think one of the biggest reasons is we put too much pressure on ourselves to do it once a week, and once a week is just so much time to dedicate to something like this. But it is why I love this platform, is because you just record and put it online. I don't do any editing. I don't even listen back to it. I just throw it on there. But I think that the biggest part that I find really great about this platform, I like I said, I was doing today's step back. I was doing about a year ago a podcast, about 4 episodes, then I stopped. But when I was younger, I had a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel I played video games on, and I did commentaries over them. I also did little edits in Adobe After Effects and Premiere, and Sony Vegas, doing little montages and things like that. But doing commentaries and doing stuff like that, being in some sort of community, where there was a lot of people around. There was always stuff to, always somebody to talk to and work together and collab together. Um, and I honestly, it's like I was probably 15 years old when I was really getting into the whole YouTube community, and it was really my true self. I had moved into the middle of the woods, basically away, hours away from the town that I had been living in, out of the hours away from Portland, and I was completely alone. I didn't have any friends, and I was kind of in this new environment where I was being homeschooled at the time, so I didn't really have any outlet to meet anybody. So I turned to online, and online there's so much freedom to be who you are, to be exactly who you are. And I think that that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a lot about today, is that I think that before you just get kind of contaminated with the whole for me, it was like a big thing was going back to high school after being homeschooled for 2 years. You fall into you wanting to make friends, you want to be accepted, you want to meet girls. That's a big one. You kind of change a lot of your normal everyday choices on what girl you like, and who's your what buddy you made at so and so's house, or there's just a lot of things that impact us all of there's a lot of things that impacted my growth, but YouTube was a really big thing for me, and that's I late probably about a week ago probably about a month ago I found my old YouTube channel just out of curiosity. I remembered to go poke back. I remembered about it and I poked back in and I saw these videos about me and I was listening to all these commentaries and it was just I remember how much fun I had. I remember how entertaining it was, and that's honestly what made me want to do this podcast. Which was, I really loved doing my podcast with my buddy, and I do hope that this podcast somehow turns into something that I can start bringing friends on and bringing guests on and stuff like that. But it just getting back to that kind of true self, getting back to that thing I think a lot of us lose a lot of the time, and even now when I'm doing this podcast, I try to, I find myself worrying about, what I'm supposed to talk about, how I'm supposed to talk about it. Even right now I'm worrying about, is this an interesting podcast to be listening to? And I don't know if it is, I mean, it's one of those things though that I think we lose ourselves and it becomes harder and harder the farther away you get from it. And I actually got some advice a while ago, which was really interesting advice to me. And it was basically, this guy was, we were talking together and we were talking about kind of becoming busier and busier and making, having to make all these types of commitments as we get older and things like that. But especially to the things that I think it's really easy to get trapped into going to work and getting off work or going to school and having the things that you have to do in your life become your life kind of thing, and not doing the things that make you happy, but for me it used to be YouTube, and for me it used to be doing things like this. I used to do commentary over gameplay, but at least now I'm sitting down to talk to a microphone alone in my house, and more or less basically just talking to myself with some sort of idea that there's other people out there listening. But we all fall. I think it's not we all fall. I think it's very easy to fall into that trap though of having these mundane things that are have-tos in our life become our life. And I hear a lot of people talk about it. I hear a lot of close friends talk about how they make money, but they don't like how they make money. But it's, one of those things. I just hear a lot of people say like, oh, I hate my job, but, it makes good money. And it's like, well, how much money are you putting towards? I won't get into that. But it's, it becomes easy to do that stuff. And why is because we can convince ourselves that, we don't have enough time, or we're too tired, or it's been a long day kind of thing. And there is validity to that. Everybody needs their downtime. Everybody needs to recuperate for sure. But also what I think happens is you kind of say that one too many times and it becomes your reality. It becomes this thing where, oh, well, I get off work and I need to go sit down and watch TV and decompress, have some, and that's all fine and dandy. But I think that can become your kind of your crutch in a way of just going home, just watching TV, not going out with your friends or doing something that excites you. And I mean, I know that I fell into that trap extremely hard for the past year. About 3 years ago, I was at the best place I had been in my life in a very long time. I was doing all sorts of different things. I was working, I went to school, but I was also writing for a newspaper, which I loved. I was playing music. I was going out and doing things with my friends. I was I had a lot of different extracurricular activities, and I was always busy, and I always enjoyed it. And I realized when you start to do that, you start to realize how many hours in a day there actually are. I mean, realistically, if you sleep 8 hours a day, there's 16 hours in a day, which is a lot of time. And I think that to me, I never really broke it down in that, right? That how many hours we actually do have in a day and how much time there is to do really fun stuff. But I think a big part of what people, I heard this guy talking the other day, and he was talking about how there was like It was scientifically proven. I don't know why he kept saying that. I mean, he was just basically like, there's a reason why time seems like it's moving faster as you get older. And that's because when you're 4 years old, 1 year was 1/4 of your life. But when you're 30 years old, 1 year is 1/30th of your life. So it's a lot shorter. I mean, yeah, there's definitely validity to that. That's a solid concept. But I think my take on that whole thing was kind of in a different way. I think that as we get older, there becomes more stuff that we don't want to do. Also, there becomes a lot more stuff that we get to do. There just becomes more stuff. The older we get, there's just more stuff that is involved in our lives that we get to be a part of, good or bad. But I think what happens and why time seems like it moves faster and faster and faster for so many people is because that we constantly are playing a waiting game. We're constantly playing this game that we are never going to win. It's a losing game that you start work Monday and you want to go you start work Monday and you're waiting till Friday. You're waiting till the end of the week because as soon as the end of the week comes, you get to go hang out with your friends and you get to go you get to go to the beach or you get to go out to the river or whatever it is. There's so many things as we get older that we're able to look forward to, and instead of just being, and it sounds so generic as just be present in the moment, but there actually is some validity to that, even if it's an exciting thing. I noticed last month there was a UFC fight that I was going to go to with a few friends, and it was when I bought the tickets, it was 2 weeks away. And I noticed that every single day I was just looking at my calendar, looking at that date on my little calendar, and I was desperately trying to get there. I just wanted to get to that date so bad. It was so I was so excited for it, but every day was just another day closer to the event instead of every day was something that I got to experience, and not necessarily like, live in the moment. It's just that the day that you're living right now is the only time you get to, this life. I heard a great quote, and it was that this life is a one-time thing. This life is a one-time deal. And so, the days that I spent looking forward to this UFC fight, subconsciously at least, there was some sort of killing time in my day in order to get the day over with so I could start the next day and then get the day over with. And so not only is it I start work Monday and I'm waiting till the weekend because I want to go do things with my friend, but it's also like I'm really excited for 2 weeks from now when I get to go do this really exciting thing. So I'm just waiting for that. And I think that life can turn into a really long chain of waiting games. And it's really dangerous. It's really not dangerous in any sort of way, but it's a very easy way to start to trap yourself in a game that's going to move too fast. And by the time you realize it's moving too fast, a lot of time has gone by. And I don't think it's one of those things that you have to wait 40 years until you realize. I mean, it took I like I said 3 years ago I was doing more than I'd ever done in my life. I was doing more activities, more things to expand my mind. And I was having a great day in and day out, and it was because every single day I had so many things to do. And whether it be the trivial like going to work or doing schoolwork. I mean, I tried to look at schoolwork as if it was something, I like learning. I like doing all that. So that's one thing. But also, like, I had something to do every day that I was able to look forward to. And I think that my hobbies were really what helped me do that. And, I was just talking to my buddy the other day, and it made me really think of all this, was that he was just, he was talking about, how he wanted to get this job because it paid well. And I was like, are you interested in doing that job? And he was like, no, not at all, but it pays really good. And, I talked to him even more, and he even said stuff like, it's like, there's like, 60-hour work week, mandatory overtime work weeks and things like that. And it's just hell. And the way he was talking about this job was just so negative. It was like, this job is going to be hell. They're going to make me work way too much, and I don't enjoy the work at all, but it pays really well. And to me that, I'm in my early 20s, or I'm in my early to mid 20s, and I don't live that life where I have a mortgage or a family, or I have to make a certain amount of money right now. But I do, at this point, I just can't imagine that I would sell my life for a paycheck, because, and that seems so brutal, but I think that's actually what I think that's what it amounts to, is that you you're basically putting a price tag on what your life is worth, what your time is worth, what your monthly life is worth. How when is 40 hours out of your week, is half of your is 40 to 60 hours a week worth $3,000 a month to you? Is that enough to not to is that enough money to do something that you absolutely hate, that you just want to be over as soon as you get there in the morning? You're looking forward to it to end, and then you're always looking forward to the weekend. It's just not to be happy. And it kind of made me start to think about this whole thing, not just that, but this whole thing about, this waiting game that we play. And, I think that there's a lot to say about somebody that falls into that trap of only going to having your work be your hobby. And, there's nothing wrong with it. If you love your work and you love coming home and watching TV and taking a load off, that's so okay. That's such an amazing thing. But to me, it was just this thought process that I was kind of going on, that I think that more people need more hobbies, because the more hobbies you do every day, you get to look forward to something for that day, instead of looking forward to something for that, for a week away. Oh, I'm looking forward to going to this UFC fight in 2 weeks, instead of waking up in the morning and going, oh, I'm looking forward to do this thing today, and I'm really excited for it, and then I'm going to come home and, make a podcast, or I'm going to come home and do this really cool thing. I'm going to come home and cook this really amazing meal that I've wanted to. Something small even that you can look forward to for that day, for that moment, and really be excited for every moment that you have. And if you if you have that job that you hate and you're just doing it to make the money, then you work 8 hours a day and you got 8 hours left before, like I said, if you get 8 hours of sleep at night, you got 16 hours in a day. You work 8 of those, you got 8 other hours to spend during the day. And if you fill those things up, it definitely slows that movement down. Now, I could be wrong, I don't know, but when I was in that best spot in my life, it all came crumbling down, and as for lack of a better word, in my life, due to I lost all inspiration. I lost all. I stopped writing. I stopped going to working out. I stopped exercising. I stopped playing music. I stopped. I had finished my associate's degree, so I wasn't in school. I didn't have any other hobbies that I was doing. I stopped making art. I stopped writing music. I stopped writing poetry, or I write for. I like writing. I was writing a book then, and I stopped doing that. I had so many things that I was trying to do and fill my time with that I all stopped. So literally, it was every day I was just sitting there and doing nothing, and you become complacent to it, and Netflix becomes your best friend, and it's hard to get up and go outside, because you lose a lot of your motivation, your energy to do things, but you don't realize. I didn't realize it at the moment. And so what ended up happening was I watched a year go by of my life, and I really didn't have anything to show for that year. I didn't have anything for that year. I didn't do anything for that entire year, and I noticed it. And now in days I'm trying, like I said, I noticed I've been trying to do things that make me happy and that are fun to do, and things that my authentic self really enjoyed doing. And so my authentic self really enjoyed making videos on YouTube and being that kind of person, being that out, extroverted invert, extroverted introvert is, I'm sitting behind a computer right now. I'm not out in the world and out doing things. I spend a lot of time. I try to spend as much time as I can in the community, but this is a very introverted thing where this is very alone, or playing some video games and then doing commentary over it. That's a very introverted thing to do, but I am trying to be part of a community again. I am trying to speak to you guys or whoever the hell is listening to this podcast, if not anybody. But I heard my friend and I were talking about this, and a different friend, a couple days ago, and he said, really, he's teaching this. He teaches at a gym. He teaches jiu-jitsu at a gym, and he teaches a 5:00 to 6:30 class. So it's an hour and a half clock, but it starts at 5:00 in the morning, and he lives 30 minutes away from the gym. And so, we were talking about it, and he's also doing so much other stuff with his life, and it's so busy. And we were talking about that kind of idea of how filling up your time can be so successful, but it's so hard to keep on that journey because it's so easy to slip back into that way of Netflix becoming your best friend and living your hobby is the thing that you don't love or that you hate, loathe even. And he said something that he was like, nobody's born the guy. Nobody's born that guy. People look at people that are so motivated and so incredibly, they're always doing something. They always are working ahead, and people think like, oh my God, that guy's like on a next level. And it's like his whole thing was like, nobody's born that guy. Nobody's born the guy that's able to do that. It's an every single day thing that every time 3 days a week, 4 days a week, when his alarm goes off at 4:00 in the morning, he wants to throw that phone right across the room and break it over the wall. He hates getting up that early, but he wants to be that guy. He's not that guy instinctually. He still has to grind it out every single day, but it makes him happy, the things that he does. There are so many things in life. Going back to having these hobbies, there's so many things in life that make us so happy, and that once we do them, we feel so good. But there is always, no matter how much you love something, there is a part of you that I think will always feel like, will always push against that. It will always feel like, this is a chore or this is somehow work, even though if you still, I know artists that paint and stuff, that paint, and they're amazing painters, but they even say it themselves, is that sometimes after I paint, I feel amazing, but before I get myself to sit down and paint is so hard. I feel like that with writing. When I write, I for some reason, like, to get myself to sit down and start typing is this whole process. Like I dread it, and I just want to sit on the couch and I want to do nothing. I don't want to put that effort in. But as soon as I sit down and I open up the page and I start writing again, 3-4 hours can go by before I realize, like, oh my gosh, I've been writing for this long, because it's something I truly enjoy doing. And so many people have that thing. Like, I know people that love to go out into the back and shoot hoops, and they're not trying to become in the NBA. They're not trying to, tossing the football around with your buddy. Like, there's so many things that we do as hobbies that we're not trying to turn into a profession. I'm not trying to be an author. I just really enjoy making a story, and the story that I've been working on, or that feeling of a story that you've been working on for so long, you get attached. And, I could go on forever about why I love writing, but that's my thing, is like, I have something that I would love to go on forever about of why I love it, but it's still a grind to sit down and do it. There's a band called Death Cab for Cutie. They're huge. I'm sure a lot of people know about them, but the lead singer, his name is Ben, and or I think it's Ben Gibbert or something like that. But anyways, he said in an interview something that really got me, really touched me in a way of, he said that once he and his band got picked up, once they were getting, once music turned into his job, for a serious job, they were getting paid in a serious way. He rented a office space downtown Seattle, where they're from. He rented an office space, and for 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, he packed a lunch and he went to the studio and he wrote songs. He would not go home unless he had written a song. And he would write and write and write. And it was because he thought to himself that if I'm going to be a musician, damn well I'm going to be a musician. Like, I want to take this seriously. But do you think that there was days that he woke up and said, "Oh shit, like I don't have to go, and there's nobody clocking me in and out." But he, instead of letting that thought go through his head, he went every single day, 5 days a week, 40 hours or 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. He was there writing music, and it was because he, once he, I think, he didn't talk about this, but it's once you push yourself to do that thing, you always come out of it happy. My buddies that shoot hoops, as soon as they're done, when they come in, take a shower, if you feel good after you do those things. And that's what my buddy and I were talking about, is the guy who teaches jiu-jitsu, is that nobody's born that guy. It's a conscious decision every single day to wake up and be that guy. And there's, another quote I heard, which was great, is that someday isn't on the calendar. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me how they have lived in their hometown their whole life, and they're like 25 or something like that, and that they really want to move somewhere else. And they listed a few states that they would love to move to. And they followed it up with, and I said something, and they followed it up with like, yeah, someday, it will be great. And that was my response. What I heard was, someday is not a day. Someday is not on a calendar. If you look on a calendar, there's 365 days in a year, and not a single one of them is labeled someday. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way to Sunday. But none of them are labeled someday, because you can contort your reality and convince yourself to that someday I can do something, and that, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing feeling. That is almost as good a feeling to me sometimes as actually doing something, is thinking to myself, you know what, like, one day I'm actually going to go back and do that, and it's going to be so fun, and I'm going to, have such a good time. I'm going to feel so good about it. But, I can't do it right now because I just worked an 8-hour day and I'm pretty tired, and and tomorrow I can't do it because I got to go to the bank and I got to open up this account, and then I got to go have a meeting with somebody, and I got lunch the next day after and there's always 1,000 different excuses. But then you go back to it and you say, 16 hours a day that I have at my disposal, and I can get a good 8-hour night's sleep. There's time. There's time to rearrange your schedule to make it fit to do those things. And there is not time to not make the move. There's not time to move to North Carolina or what was the other states? It was like she wanted to move to North Carolina or Wyoming or whatever. I can't remember, but there's not time to waste on that. Because someday isn't on a calendar. To me, it really, it lights a fire under my ass, but then I struggle every single day to get up and do the things that I want to do. I'm doing this podcast, and I really want to do this podcast as the best I can, and I want to start a YouTube channel for this podcast and start doing a video aspect to it, just like a lot of podcasts these days online are also filmed and recorded, so you can listen to them online or watch an actual video of me on YouTube. I'd love to, my buddy that's moving in actually he's going to start Twitch streaming video games and doing commentary over those, and I'd love to learn how to do this live on YouTube or Twitch, and I'd love to keep writing and try to finish this book that I've been working on for 2 years, and over 2 years now, and I'd love to keep going and learning new things and going to the gym and learning new things and I want to learn new activities, and I want to go out with my friends on the weekends and go to see a show or go to a some sort of event that's even if it's like a Saturday market, a Sunday market, something like that. Like always being active, always trying to do something, always trying to push yourself into uncomfortable zones, uncomfortable areas that you don't want to do. Man, I want to sleep in on a Saturday morning. I don't want to wake up at 7 and get going and start my day and go to the Saturday market and, but why not? We all get 8 hours of sleep. If you get 8, we all, studies have come out and said that the average adult doesn't actually need 8 hours. They need more like 7. So there's always time to sleep in. And if you think about it like that, it's still, I'm not talking bad about any life choices. This is honestly just cathartic in a way for me to continue to try to do the things that I know are going to make me happy, because I know for sure that when I'm busy, I'm a happier, healthier person. I get really down, I get really depressed and locked in my head, and I get gnarly. Agoraphobia is a real thing, and I don't want to take away from people that actually have that, and a fear of absolutely everything, a fear about going outside, leaving the house because, everything freaks you out. But I don't want to dull that down, but it feels like that when I don't do anything with my time and I spend so much time inside. I just get so anxious trying to leave the house, so anxious trying to get myself to do stuff. But when I'm constantly forcing myself and I'm waking up and choosing to be that guy, when I wake up and choose to be that guy every day, I become less like that. I become less depressed. I become more energetic. I become less agoraphobic. I become a person that I like to be more, a person that I just like more, a person that I don't mind being, because I have those tendencies to fall into crutches of depression and anxiety and things like that. So this podcast, is winding down to an end, and this is really all I've wanted to say, but I just truly don't ever think that waiting for the UFC fight to start in 2 weeks is the way to go. I think that every day should try to have something that you are working towards, or trying to do something that that you enjoy or that you used to enjoy, and bring it back into your life. Just like 8 years ago, I did the YouTube commentaries, and I started this love of actually getting to be my authentic self in a platform where there is nobody to judge me. There is nobody to hold me back in any sort of way of me feeling insecure about things. That I get to be behind a microphone, and I get to be the guy that I want to be. And for a second podcast, I guess this is more just me talking about myself and how I try to see the world, but maybe somebody can find a nugget of truth in that for your own life. But I'll close it down here and hope that for me and for you, or for anything, that I want to wake up to be the guy. I want to wake up every day to be that guy. And so I guess we just got to keep trying. I guess that is the perpetual bitch of life, is that it's always going to try to beat you down, but at some point everybody's just got to keep waking up and giving it a best shot. So, this podcast wasn't really what I thought it was going to be, actually. This is kind of cool. It was turned into a whole different thing than I had kind of jotted down some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about this week, but I kind of veered off from it, but it was good. I mean, I hope that somebody out there is going to listen to the end, and if you are listening to the end, good on you. I really appreciate you guys listening. I wanted to mention in the last one, but I'll mention it here at the end for anybody that's listening, that if you have any questions or anything that you want me to talk about, you can email me at toe-to-toe-podcast@gmail.com. That's once again the name of this podcast, toe-to-toe-podcast@gmail.com. Email me questions or email me things that you want me to talk about or anything. And that's it for me today. It is been good, and I'll see you on the next round. Take care.